everyone, this is Melissa Psihudakis and welcome to A Breath of Fresh Marketing. I'm here today with ZouZou Mansour, lead singer of Philadelphia-based band Soraia, has released 6 albums, toured all over the US and parts of Europe, and has co-written songs with Bon Jovi, Stephen Van Zandt, and Billy Falcon. ZouZou, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's Friday, can't complain.
Yeah, same here. Life is good.
Yes, it is. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a singer in a rock band Soraia. I've been singing since 2000. I've been singing since I was in 2nd grade, but going out and doing open mics and stuff since 2002. And Soraia started in about 2005, and then we got really serious around 10. So I'd say we've been going at it for 10 years hard. And we're doing great. We're writing songs. We've gotten better in everything we do. And I'm proud to be part of that. I grew up with parents who had just come from other countries. My father was Egyptian. He had come over from Egypt and started working here in University of Pennsylvania. And my mother was from Belgium, and she started working at a bank here. And they met at a bank, and it was both their second marriages, and me and my brother were there. So we did a lot of traveling. We've been as teenagers, and we had mixed families since we were kids. And I think that's important for us because it definitely developed a sense of understanding that of multicultural and multi-religious and diverse belief systems and also ways of life, which I think as an artist contributed to my way of seeing things. I've always had a really active imagination since I was really small, could always think about things and create things. And at the same time, then I think it isolated me as a kid because I didn't really know what it was so much. People would always be like, you're in your head. But, and I was real sensitive. I think as I was growing up, I realized what I was, that I was an artist, and music spoke to me very young. Like I said, in 2nd grade was the first time I sang on stage, and no one in my family had done that. I didn't have musicians. I wasn't surrounded by singers and musicians in my family. So for that to come out of nowhere, I always think is a gift, and I honor it, even if the outsides don't match what I personally want. I realize it's a gift and it's a talent that I'm developing and will be developing till the day I die. So, I think I've just had, as an artist, I've read a lot of works of other artists, Patti Smith, and, just biographies and autobiographies, looking for that identification that you're looking for, being part of a community of musicians. And and here I am today.
Nice. Well, how did the name Soraia come to be?
Soraia was actually, it's my birth name. And my father told me a long time ago, he said, Soraia, I always wanted to name you Soraia because I wanted you to be special. And Soraia is a guiding star in Arabic. It's part of the Pleiades constellation, and it's the brightest star in the constellation. And it's also like a guiding star. So I always looked at it like I wanted the band to be named Soraia because it's a unit that creates this, whoever the members are, it's a unit that creates this powerful energy and this powerful force. And to me, that's what rock and roll always was. So it wasn't even a name thing as much as it was the idea of what Soraia meant. I wanted the band to be called Soraia, and ZouZou's always been my nickname. But it's funny because for a long time, people called me Soraia, and I was like, I don't want you to associate me and the band like it's one thing. And so anyway, people started calling me ZouZou all the time. So it was good. It was also a name given me by little Steven, but my dad had called me ZouZou growing up. So it kind of came back to me through another artist, so which is cool.
That's cool. I like that. That's a really neat nickname to have.
Thank you.
Yeah. So some kids grow up wanting to be astronauts, or they want to be president of the United States.
Yeah.
Have you always known you wanted to be a singer? And, you had mentioned about singing since you were in 2nd grade. Yeah. Did you know that one day you'd be like this big star singing?
Thank you. No, the funny thing about it is internally, I believe I knew it from the get-go. Like I very strongly believe in that you have an inner pull, and that sometimes other people's expectations of you and other ideas about what will keep you, I guess, safe and things that you like to do. Like my father always wanted me to be a doctor. And I would tell people when I was growing up, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm talking like 3, 4, 5 years old. And then he said, you're going to be the first female president of the United States. So then I was like, I'm going to be the first female president of the United States. So it was just, whatever my dad wanted me to be is what I wanted to be. I didn't really think about it until I hit high school. Seriously, until I hit high school. I kind of always was grade obsessed in grade school. So I wasn't really focused on what I liked as much as I was just, doing what I was the next thing I had to do. But by high school, music had called to me, and definitely I just thought I wasn't a singer. So even though that was the very first instinctual thing I wanted to do, I did not have the girls that got the parts in high school weren't my style of voice, much higher pitched and a little more technically accurate than I was. So I always thought, well, I want to be in a band though, so I'll be a drummer, because I loved playing drums. Like I had taken piano lessons growing up. I took guitar lessons, but I loved the drums, and I really was committed to the drums. Like I loved going to lessons. I loved learning about it. I loved listening to drums and figuring them out. So I thought I was going to be a drummer, to be honest. And then, because I just didn't think I was talented in the area that I wanted to pursue. It's a funny story with that. I may get a chance to tell it later. But anyway, so I knew I wanted to be a musician from high school onward. So yeah, even though that's not necessarily what my dad wanted for me, he did later. But when he realized I loved it like I did, but yeah, it was not a like, yep, definitely this thing. It took me to like fall in love with it in high school to realize that was my calling. And then I didn't know where I was going to go with it. The funny thing is I was aspiring to be, my very first thing I wanted to do was I just wanted to be in a touring band, because I liked in high school, we would get on the bus and we'd go to we'd play like malls and hotels and nursing homes and stuff. So,
Nice.
to me, I was like, this is the greatest thing, traveling with other musicians. I was like, so I knew I wanted to be a touring musician. But then again, I guess like I just went a different way at first. Anyway, yeah. So I say high school.
What's that like, touring, like being on the road? I know COVID hit and changed for a lot of, everybody, but what was that like, touring? Just, it seems like it's a whole other type of world.
Yeah. It is. It's like the whole day's about the show. For me, vocally, I have to rest a lot. I have to eat right. I have to drink a lot of water. I probably take better care of myself on the road than I do at home.
Really?
I think so. I think the only thing that makes it difficult is not having the level where we can have every time we stay somewhere, we have like a refrigerator and a microwave. Like most times we do now, but that's only been recent. But not having a steady food plan. I think I don't exercise as much on the road, but I sing every night, and I'm like crazy on stage. So I definitely work out more in a different way. Plus I try to stay, if we have days off, I try to stay active. I try to get outside. It's good for your mind. It's good for your body. And but I think it's just you get into a habit. Like I'd say it takes about a week or two to just fall into being comfortable touring. I go through like terrible anxiety before I go on the road, because it's a lot of movement. And when you're used to being home and your hours are like, I have these nights are my rehearsal nights, and sometimes it's disrupted with now we're going to go, to studio, but it's just touring. You're on the road constantly, and there's different things that come up. We've been lucky because, we stay in pretty nice places and we have good vehicles. That wasn't always the case, that's for sure. But it is now, and it's a lot easier now than it used to be, for sure.
Cool. I like that. It's good getting that inside scoop. I always wondered what it was like,
Yeah, too, the other thing is you meet so many people, and it's really nice. Like you connect, aside from the show itself, there's the time after the show where you can talk. I feel more at ease talking after a show than I do before, because I'm trying to get my head into a space and my voice into a space where I feel confident during the show. But after the show, I feel like I can relax a little, and you talk to everybody and they tell you what the band means to you. And it's really beautiful. It's a good experience, and you need that. I think, artists tend to be self-deprecating at times. We need that other part of us that, that know that we're doing it and it's making a difference. And that's what I like about being on the road, the people that you meet and you get to talk to. It's really fulfilling.
No, that's awesome. So what would you say your music genre is?
Definitely rock to rock and roll. We have, I'm a very strong, I like writing melody, and my main co-writer writes riff-based kind of. Lately it hasn't been, but normally he writes pretty riff-based songs, very rock and roll, some are hard rock, but I'd say we tend to go towards a little bit more of a strong rhythm in our songs and strong melody, but it's still loud guitars, heavy guitars. And we grew up on grunge and he grew up on Misfits and Cramps, and I liked the Seattle scene and and I liked pop. I loved pop. I loved Michael Jackson and the pop that to me had a little more depth than some of the other pop that came at that time too. So, but I was really into Soundgarden and Nirvana.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed. I can't believe you said that. I've been listening to Soundgarden. So Chris Cornell was one of my faves. And lately I've been listening to Audio Slave and Soundgarden and Temple of the Dog.
Yeah. So, it was honest. I think the authenticity of that time period really spoke to me, and the music that came out of that time period. Garage rock was a big influence on all of us, or at least, the writers definitely. The early 2000s garage rock, the White Stripes, the Hives. I shouldn't say the Hives because I only recently heard of them. But I've heard of them, but I've only recently really in the last 5 years started listening to them. But the Vines, bands like that really captured that's what I knew when I heard them, that's what I wanted to do. And that's pretty much when we started. So right after that.
So would you categorize yourself similar to them, hipster rock band kind of thing?
No, we're not hipster.
Are you more
There's nothing cool about us? So we can't even pretend to be hip. We're just
more grunge. Would you lead more to the Pearl Jammy side than more of the White Stripes side? If you were to,
I think that you can hear both those influences our music as much as you can hear the Cramps. I think, and you can also hear pop. I don't know. Travis all of a sudden will play a bass line that sounds like Duran Duran from the 80s. It's just
I love Duran Duran.
Yeah, it's we have very diverse listening styles, and it all comes together from Brianna, our drummer, to Nick, our guitar player, to Travis, to our bassist, and me. We have such diverse styles. It's like a Venn diagram. So when it meets, it's that's what Soraia is, and it's all rock based. And to me, garage rock, I love the explosion of it, and that 60s kind of tipping your hat to the roots of rock and roll. I've been a big fan of Motown for a long time. And I discovered the blues through garage rock, if I'm honest. I started listening to Howlin' Wolf and stuff like that after I started hearing garage rock. So I kind of feel like garage rock kind of introduced me to stepping backwards into the roots of rock and roll, which is what I feel like we still honor. Our newest song definitely is a Sonics. It's a cover song of a pretty obscure to people who don't know garage rock, but Sonics are one of the biggest garage rock bands, came out of the 60s, and they were a strong influence on us as well. So it's a bunch of different musical styles going into one. Sometimes people say we're like the Pretenders, or we're like Joan Jett, because there's a female front, and because there's that toughness and a little bit of that badass kind of vibe to what we do. So I think we remind people a lot of different things, and we have a lot of different influences.
No, I love that. And I'm such a music whore would be the best word to describe me. So, when you mentioned Duran Duran, and I feel like you're in my house with me, how did she know that?
Yeah.
Because I blast them on my Bose system, I love, I was obsessed as a kid, and I had crushes on Nick Taylor, I know my sisters had a crush on Simon Le Bon. So, just I can't not listen to them after all these years, after all these decades. And then I can flip the switch 2 seconds later. I'm in the mood for Motown, and I got the Temptations on, and I got the Platters playing, and it's just, I love music. I can appreciate all genres. I love rock, and it's pretty awesome because you get all these influences from all these different artists over time, and you can take like a little piece from all of them, you know.
That's exactly what I think. True, like music lovers, when they hear something they really love, they kind of go backwards. They find out about that artist and what they listen to, and then you end up going backwards to become a fan of all different things, and you start appreciating all music. You know what I mean? And then it kind of also turns you off to some stuff. But I feel like, there's nothing. I remember I had this conversation with Steven Van Zandt the very first time I met him, and he was saying in Europe, the audiences love all styles of rock. They love all styles of, like, it's not about this, I only like this style or I'm only into this style. I think that happens, but I think a lot of people just like a lot of music. I appreciate greatly Duran Duran. I was just listening to them on repeat actually a few weeks ago, and just being like, they're like, if you hear the reflex and just the musicianship in there, besides the fact that it's catchy, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy how good they are. But just listening, you're kind of like, it's just a great song. But then you listen like intently and you're like, wow, this is great musicianship, great lyric writing. This is really good stuff. Like, so yeah, I think all music is, I'm not surprised if you're a music fan, you probably like a lot of versatile kind of styles.
I do. I'm always playing stuff on Spotify, and I just go nuts, I'm always looking for something new, but then I also like the old stuff. I'm also obsessed with the 80s. I love 80s.
Yeah, me too. I've been listening to a lot of 80s lately. I don't know what that is. I was just like, wow. And Jack White I've been listening to a lot of too.
Okay.
Soraia, oddly enough, which I never used to listen to my band, but now I do. So
nice. So as a singer-songwriter, where do you draw your inspiration for writing?
All different places. I think Erykah Badu called it downloading. She's like, sometimes you can't write, you're just downloading. And I could really relate to that, because there's times you're just passively, like, and subconsciously observing situations. My writing tends to be very autobiographical, whereas other people would never write that kind of stuff, but I find like my writing, it's easier for me to be honest when I'm writing about something I actually experienced, or I know someone who experienced this situation and they told me about it deeply. You know what I mean? Well, the only time I really wrote outside of that is I was listening to Jeff Buckley a bunch when we did Dead Reckoning, which was our 2017 release. And I wrote in 16, that's when I was listening to him a lot. And I wrote a song hearing about how he died, like from the perspective of the girlfriend on the side of the river, or even just a close friend on the side of the river. But it was really important for me to do that, as I wasn't that kind of writer. So I just wanted to try something. But like I said, I draw my inspiration from experiences, from people. I had a talk with someone a few years ago at our California show, and he said, you should write more about things that you've been through. And Superman Is Gone came from that, because it was about, when I was getting high, like I was a really bad addict for a good period of 3 or 4 years. And I was like, nobody wants to hear a song about another addiction song. Like, part of me is like, what am I going to say about it that hasn't been said? Or not out of ego, but just out of like, how can I relate this experience in an honest way? I don't know if I was capable of writing a song like that and not trying to appeal to some other thing that I didn't want to appeal to. And I did. I wrote a song that I'm proud of, it was just about my experiences doing it, and, how I felt like Superman when it was happening, and then that was gone when it was over, kind of thing. I was like, that's great. And people really liked the song. So I was like, had that conversation not happened, I wouldn't have written that song. So I think it's really important for me just to connect with people. Like, my co-writer is really good at getting me to write about things that I normally wouldn't even think to write about. And other times I'll just hear something that was sent to me and come up with an idea. Like the music says it before I do, or it brings out an experience in me. That's kind of how I tend to write, is I get the music and I feel something to the music, or I hear something in the music and then I write to that. So music inspires me, people inspire me, conversations. Somebody said something, she said, I'm walking through the I feel like I'm walking through the minefields in my head. I'm like, oh, that's going in a song. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes people just say things and you're like, that's a line of a song. And it ended up being the first line of Still I Rise. And another woman was telling me about having, that there's this little piece of white velvet in all of us that's untouched by everything that happens. And I put that in Wild Woman. So it's like conversations bring about songs, but it's like almost like sewing pieces of talks together more than taking one talk and making it the song. I think anybody who answers that would have to say it comes from everywhere, just being aware and conscious of it.
For sure. So you mentioned that you suffered from addiction for about 3 years. Do you feel like during that time you had support, or do you feel like it was kind of a time where you were more kind of in like a dark place and siloed yourself from everybody?
Oh, I've never heard it put that way. Yeah, I did kind of silo myself. See, there you go. It's another song idea right there. But yeah, I definitely was in a dark place. Addicts tend to push everyone away, and if they can't push them away, they leave. So it's the nature of addiction to isolate. It was a very lonely time. It was a very dark time, and I'm glad I'm not there anymore. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people don't make it out of that, and if they do, they just are happy to get by. And I always feel like I was given a second chance at life with some of the experiences I had during that time. So I'm gonna enjoy it to the best of my ability while I'm here. That's how I look at it.
Absolutely.
Borrowed time. So,
amen to that.
Thank you.
So tell us about your writing process. How do you deal with writer's block? I mean, when do you get your best ideas? I know for myself, I'll be in the middle of the night sleeping and I jump up with an idea because I dreamt it. Like, does that happen to you? When do you get those really awesome, nuggets that you get to use in your songs?
I think just like what I said, like when I talk to people, all of a sudden, I mean, it's almost like their words pop out of what the conversation. I'm not even thinking about writing a song while I'm talking to people. And it's like that downloading I was talking about. And then all of a sudden they'll say something or even just a piece of a sentence. And I'll be like, oh my God. And it just hits me hard. And I think that's a gift. Like, I think that you can develop it and you can work on it. But I really believe that I hear that because I was meant to hear those things. Because I heard those things since I was little, but I just didn't know why, And I think when you say about the dreams, you just gave me another idea, because I was like, I have some weird dreams. I should turn them into something. But I think really anywhere you can find. I mean, there's times I've sat in. Okay, I don't even know where that came from. There's times I've sat surrounded by poetry books and literature, and been like, I have no idea, but I have this piece of work in front of me and I have an appointment to go with my writer that Sunday. So I'm like, welp, better think of something fast. So I don't kind of sit there and let myself, I guess. I don't think it's really letting. I think I always go, well, it's either going to be a terrible song, but it's going to be something. I'm not going to sit here and not write something. I mean, there are days I'll sit there and not write something I think is very worthwhile, but I think that's why I love collaborating, because then when I sit with someone else, and to me, my main co-writer, the reason I say that about him is we've written together for years. First of all, we've written together for 10 years. And the other thing is, I know if I say something to him, he'll tell me that's crap. Like, or you always do that, or why are you writing another song about that, or why are you saying that again? You know what I mean? Like he's not afraid to call me on my stuff, but he also knows my stuff from me working with him that long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like it might sound really good to somebody else, but also the freshness of writing with somebody I haven't written with in a while is really cool, because they see what I have to say is fresh, but I have that head that second guesses. So I need somebody to kind of go like, yeah, that's good. No, that's not good. And then I can drop it. So, do I get writer's block? I'd say yes, but I still write through it. You know what I mean? Cause I'm not every song that I write, not every word I write, not every lyric I write is going to be like, wow. You know what I mean? It's just, I've accepted that part of it, that it's not like I'm either a great writer or I'm a terrible writer. It's a process. You have to work at it. Like, I really believe you have to work at it. Like and it's probably my least favorite thing in the world is to think about writing. I get fearful that I have nothing to say. If I think about it too long, it kind of paralyzes me. But if I just go up and do it, I know something's going to come out. I think that's what comes with like the experiences and of writing with the people I've written with, is I realize you don't really have a choice. You just sit down and write, and you don't judge it. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever written in my life. And then and the next song is like, this is the greatest thing I've ever written in my life. And you're like, okay. But I did write one recently that I'm very, very proud of, in a genre that I don't feel like is necessarily what we do. And I was surprised by it. It was actually influenced by watching a TV show and being like, I can write songs for like thematic, big anthem-y, like movie songs. And so we wrote this one. I told my co-writer I really wanted to write one like that while I was in the mood, and we did. And I'm really proud of it. I think it's amazing. I think it's so amazing that I'm afraid to share it with anyone, which never happens. So I'm like, okay, this is either like the worst song ever written, or it's pretty good. But it's probably not as amazing as I think it is, but that's okay.
That's awesome. When you perform, before you go out on stage, what is going through your mind, and how do you physically feel right before you step out on stage?
Honestly, Melissa, I think it's always different. It depends the size of stage, whether it's a familiar audience or it's a new audience. When we open for people, I get a little nervous because you never know how they're going to respond. It's not about if you're good enough or not. It's just, the audiences sometimes are lukewarm. Mm-hmm. But like every time, I know when we open for Joan Jett, I love it because like by the third time we opened for her, people knew the band name and knew my name. She's just those kind of fans that are really, they'll embrace you. Whereas when I've opened Summerfest to 25,000 people and felt very little back in response, you know what I mean? So it depends like that. I think I've done it long enough that I know even on a bad night, or if my voice isn't working the way I want it to, or it's just not as loose as I'd like it to be, or if it's like the fourth night in a row I'm singing, it's like, a little more nerves about just that kind of stuff. But I know I think sometimes too, if it's a smaller audience, I get nervous that I'm not going to give it my all because maybe I'm tired but I never disappoint myself. And I think that's the key, is I know no matter what, I'm going to get out there. I'm going to warm up my voice. I'm going to take care of my voice. I don't do the type of singing where I can afford to not take care of it. It'll fail me quickly. So I'm just, I think I'm always a little nervous because, going into clubs sometimes, if you don't have a sound check or you don't have a good enough sound check, or the sound engineer isn't quite as good as I'd like him to be, I get nervous about that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to push too hard and hurt myself, or am I not going to be able to hear? And, but then there's times that it's like that and I kind of just don't care and I let it go. So it really depends on how I'm feeling that day. And as we've toured more and more, I've just taken better and better care of myself. So I tend to have confidence. I kind of am at that point where I am what I am and I've accepted it. I'm not going to be somebody else. I think I struggled more when I was trying to be what I thought I was supposed to be. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just know I have the voice I have. I'm going to sing the way I sing, and I'm going to be the way I am, and people are either going to like it or not, and that's fine. I have a confidence definitely when I go out there, but I also have a vulnerability. Mm-hmm. But I like that. I think that keeps me fresh and it keeps me awake and aware in the moment. it's not just some job, you know.
Yeah, definitely. So you've also co-written songs. I had mentioned earlier that you co-written songs with Bon Jovi and Steven Van Zandt and Billy Falcon. What was that dynamic like? I mean, did you ever disagree on how a song should sound, or like how did that kind of flow?
Well, that was 2010 to 13. We didn't really play much. We were writing. I was learning to write songwriting a little more. And I was really focused on that and recording. So we didn't play out much between 10 and 13. And I was spending a lot of time, I was writing with John, and I was flying places to write with him. I was working with his producer, John Shanks. And then I also was working with Billy Falcon, who he co-wrote with in Nashville. And Steven Van Zandt I've written with more recently after we signed with his label. And so they were all very different experiences because of who I brought to the table at those times. Who I was in 2010 was not who I was in 2018 as a writer. So although I knew I wrote the type of songs that interested John Bon Jovi, he loved the one song I wrote that was called What You Say and Always What You Mean. And it never did anything. Like, I never recorded that song. So it's funny. But that's the song that made him like want to write. But he liked the way I told stories, and he kind of took the way I wrote and made it a little more accessible, which I learned from him. I learned that, we took it line by line and we just wrote. And the very first song we wrote together, he wrote. And I even said that to him at the end. I'm like, you pretty much wrote this whole song. The only thing I wrote in this song was one line. And he's like, that's okay. But I didn't feel like it was okay because I wanted to be more of a contributor. But honestly, looking back now with the ability to reflect, I wasn't where I could contribute well. I was trying to get it right and belong in the room rather than learn, but despite myself, I still learned, because I worked with him so much and in such diverse settings. I wrote with him at his house in New York, and then we wrote in Nashville, Tennessee, and then we wrote in LA, so he was always on the road. So I had to kind of follow him. And then when he was away on tour, I wrote with his co-writer, Billy, who I learned a lot from. Like, we wrote 3 songs in one day. Well, me and John did that too. But I was much more of a receiver then. I was listening to their ideas. And if I ever disagreed, it was usually with Billy Falcon, because I wasn't as intimidated by him. And I felt a little more at ease because we wrote in his house. And they always came from conversations with him. So, and that's how I learned to write, that I really liked. And that's when I started writing with Travis. It was much more conversational. And I like that because it kind of naturally becomes a song. But anyway, he's the first one who asked me to like squeeze my voice a little bit and try a different style of singing. There were disagreements at that time because we were making an album, and the songs I co-wrote with John were very different from the ones I wrote with Billy, who was much more of a country artist, I guess, but he was kind of pushing me towards a girl groupie sound in some of the songs. But really, they were just songs. I mean, but as the producer couldn't hear them any other way, and that was fine. But the truth is, I learned so much from both of them, and I still connect with Billy. When we go to Nashville, John, I don't talk to as much, but I talk to Billy a lot, and he's doing well and he's writing. Steven was 8 years later. So, it was a lot more of a contributor to that song. The song I wrote, Still I Rise, that we co-wrote together. I had wanted to write a song based on the poem by Maya Angelou, Still I Rise, but we called it I Am Rise. And I co-wrote it with a guitarist at the time. And Steven's like, why don't you call it Still I Rise? What's wrong with that? And I was like, well, that's the poem's name. And he's like, so? And I was like, all right, you're right. Why am I like, so he helped me kind of get out of the box of, well, I can't take directly from that. I was like, why not? It's a popular topic. It's not just, so, and then we co-wrote that one a lot more together. He wrote the music, and I contributed a lot with the words. He contributed a lot with the words. It was much more of an even playing field there. I didn't really disagree. Part of it for me is these people are much more experienced than I am, and I'm trying to learn from them. So I didn't look at it like I'm trying to get this song out of them so much, which changed my way of relating to them. I kind of let it be what it was. And that's what I think is so magical about songwriting is you're really in the moment. when you're songwriting. Like you're not really able to think forward or behind, or I think if you get too caught up on what the song's supposed to end up being or what it should sound like, or what we got to write a song like we wrote this song, then it becomes miserable and not as magic. You know, a lot of songwriters say you got to step out of the way and let God in the room. Michael Jackson said that. Tom Waits always says that you got to step out of the way and let the spirit in the room. And I feel like that's really what it is you got to get out of the way. It's not ego. It's not about what you can contribute. So in 2010 to 13, I was a little more about like, I have to earn my place here, a little more ego, a little more like trying to force ideas. And in 18, I was more willing to like let ideas come and let the other person take the reins. Like everybody always splits 50-50 in my world, you know, no matter if you wrote 3 more lines than I did, we don't do that. Like to me, that takes away the joy and the magic that is songwriting, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever blanked on stage?
Yeah, all the time. Like I forget words constantly. I end up singing the same verse. Like I don't know why. There's no reason for it. It's like I've sang the song 500 times, but all of a sudden the one time I'm just like, And I think that like right before, sometimes I'll get before a line and I'm like, I don't remember the line. Then all of a sudden it just comes out of my mouth. So I've had that for sure. There's no preparedness that you can have really. That's perfect. But that's what I love about rock and roll, Melissa. Like rock and roll is nothing but mistakes. Like it's imperfection and you're allowed to be a mess. You know, I just feel like that's why rock and roll speaks to me so much. Like it's not technically perfect. It's not, if I don't hit that note quite right, it's not going to be like, whoa, you know, she didn't quite, you know what I mean? It's not that kind of singing. It's just emotion and it's raw and it's honest. And I know how to do that. So.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the craziest thing that's happened to you on tour?
Oddly enough, like some weird stuff has happened, but for me, my strongest memory is being in Galveston, Texas on an RV.
Okay.
Picking up, and we had a tour manager at the time. So we were signed to an indie label and we had this like big time tour manager, which was the weirdest thing. We had some weird Spinal Tap experiences, but I woke up and I looked out the window because we're sleeping in an RV and we're at the beach in Galveston, Texas. And I'd never been to Galveston, Texas. And the first thing I do is go to the door. We open the door because we're going to go out and look. And some guy's there with a big python. And he's trying to sell us a python snake. And I'm like, there's no one else around. There's just some strange man holding a gigantic python snake. I ended up holding it and everything. But I was like, that just to me is like kind of like we entered another dimension for a minute and then came back. So to me, it's not some crazy rock and roll story or even people involved. It was like some man with a python just walked into our world and walked right out of it when we said we didn't want to buy it. So that's actually my craziest personal story. Like I think like some weird stuff's happened, but not out of the realm of just people that drank a little too much or did something a little too much. And there's some strange personal ones, but I think that's the one.
Okay, that is pretty far out there.
It's never happened since. So it never happens. So there it is.
So what's your favorite city to perform in?
Right now it's New York.
Yay.
I love New York City. I feel close to New York City. I feel like it took a lot for us to be accepted there, and now we are. By accepted, I just mean grow an audience. It took a long time to grow an audience, and I feel like that's happened. And I always know when we go there, I feel at home, even though it's quite a trip. It's like a couple hours. So, but it's still like home. Every time we play Berlin or Bowery Electric, I really love those places. I'd say second would be Philly. We've played basically everywhere in our hometown. So Philly's got our heart too. It's where I started and fumbled and started again and fumbled and started again. So Philly will always have my heart. But I think honestly, my favorite place to perform is definitely, there's 2 places. I love the Redwood in LA. Mm-hmm. Always love playing there. And I love playing Bowery Electric in Berlin. I have about the same status in my mind. That's and awesome. Playing Philly is good too.
Cool. I lived in Philly for a brief moment in my life.
Yeah. What'd you think?
It rained every day I lived there.
Oh, no, that's terrible. That's not what Philly's about, though. You should come back.
So,
Philly when COVID's over.
When I moved there, there was 14 inches of snow the day I moved there. And I was like, oh my God, I hope it gets better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then every single day that I was there, it rained and poured, and I felt like I was living in Seattle.
Oh yeah. No. Philly's cool. We rehearse there every night, so or every 2 nights a week. But I don't live there anymore. Not far from there, but I just moved recently. But I love Philly. Obviously, it's my home. But it's got some cool places. You should give it another chance. You should definitely take a visit. But I'd kind of think the same. Like it's probably like a East Coast Seattle, if that was my experience for sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it another shot. But it was just, of course, my experience at the time. And I wasn't there a long time. I think I got sick of the rain and I left.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I truly was like, okay, I'm out of here. So what's your favorite song to perform live?
Honestly, it changes. It was Monster for a long time, which was off our 2017 release. I loved performing I'm Not Like Everybody Else because the audience always sang it back, which I really enjoyed. I think now it's so hard because we haven't toured since March. It's just hard because this record that released in March didn't get that kind of opportunity in front of live audiences that I feel like I would know. But I know in rehearsal, I love doing Superman Is Gone and Wild Woman. Any of like the hard rockin' ones that I can just kind of jump around to a little more. Monster has definitely always been a favorite. So it changes, but I'd say like those ones are always good where I'm a little less coherent about hitting certain notes and I'm just kind of like whatever, It's like those relief songs, I guess.
Definitely. Can we get a little sample of Monster?
Yeah, sure. For some reason I'm blanking, see? Some people feed off of dreams and a reverie. I walk the line with the monster inside of me. What's on the outside, all I appear to be, ain't what you find when you dig deep.
Nice. Woo.
Thank you.
Very nice. I love it.
Thank you.
So I love your album and your merchandise and artwork. How much of an influence do you have in creating all of that?
I'm very involved in the cover art of the albums and all the artwork on the singles and the albums. Somewhat involved in the t-shirt designs. A lot of times Brianna Sig, our drummer, comes up with ideas. And I just kind of contribute to them. It's much, again, a collaboration. But a lot of times when it comes to the album, I'll come up with the title and I'll come up with the artistic idea. And then from like something she does or Louie, who does a lot of our cover art for our songs or for our releases with Wicked Cool, we'll talk for a while. Like this last release that's coming out in January, Tight Lipped, Travis Smith, our bass player and my main co-writer, he came up with an idea. And normally he doesn't contribute. He hasn't in a while. He used to a lot, but he's like, I have an idea. I just really like it for the cover art. And he sent it to me and I was like, I don't know how I couldn't figure out how it related to the song itself, like the lyrics and the story of the song. So I was like, okay. But then Louis from the label contacted me about the artwork. And I said, what do you think of this? Like, do you see anything in this? And he had an idea like how it could transpire from the front to the back. And I loved it. And then he would send me an idea and then I'd change the color scheme or I'd ask him to make something a little smaller, but like, and then the last album, same thing. Like I had garden imagery for it and I wanted kind of this idea of deciding between good and evil. And so that was much more of a collaboration between me and Louis and also Brianna Sig. So yeah, I'm always heavily involved in the artwork, but I'm not always the one who comes up with the idea,
Okay. So switching gears a little bit, you recently had a sale on your website where a portion of the proceeds went to Project Home. Can you tell me a little bit about the organization and why you're so passionate about it?
Yeah, I love talking about Project Home. Sister Mary Scullion is actually one of the forerunners of that organization. She's one of the heads of it, and the most public persona-wise that you see. I met Sister Mary through our old producer who worked with John Bon Jovi. And then when I worked with John, he was such a big advocate of theirs. And for a period of time when I was in my addiction, I was homeless. So I knew what it was like to be. And, you know, I wasn't like a career homeless person, which people that have lived on the streets for 10 or 20 years. But I did live on the streets for 3 months. And I know how that was in the winter, you know, and I know how it felt, how people looked at you and they wanted to let you use their house, but they didn't, you know, and they wanted you to be okay with that. It was a strange thing. And so I feel really connected to that because I feel like I've experienced it and the stigma of it. And so I got involved really through when I was working with the Bon Jovi organization, kind of songwriting with John and stuff. And I met Sister Mary and I told her my story, and she always tries to empower the individual and starts with very young kids that are homeless, you know, families that are homeless, and tries to show them a different way. And then ultimately it's their decision if they want to take that way or take, you know, there's like whole parts of the organization that also help with passing legislation. Like they've grown over the years. And I just feel like it's one of those organizations that they collect in Philly and they contribute in Philly, you know, so it's like a community thing. And I don't feel like it's only for Philly, so blah, blah, blah. But I feel like I can affect change in my hometown more so than I can affect change in, say, Kansas. You know what I mean? It's a little more, I can go there, I can see what's going on, I can bring them things. I check in with John, who's the volunteer organizer there often, to find out what's going on, you know, and how these kids were making sandwiches for everyone in the encampment back in like May and June. And, you know, I just always want to help. It's like, I feel like we're all equal, like, you know what I mean? No matter what our economic or personal life circumstances are, and everybody deserves a second chance. I feel like I was given that, and whatever I can do to help contribute to that. And I like to involve the fans in that because I feel like they feel good about what they're contributing to too. And maybe they wouldn't have done it on their own, or maybe they won't even have heard of Project Home or been aware of, you know, maybe just had a thing against homeless people, but we're starting to learn about it a little bit and be more open-minded about it a little bit through a band that they like, you know? So to me, it's part of your responsibility to contribute to your community as in a way that you're attracted to, you know what I mean? And if you don't feel attracted to it, then, you know, don't do it. But for me, I've gone to Christmas Eve service or Christmas Day service there a number of times. It's just a beautiful thing. Like there's a guy that works there now who was homeless for 20 years and he works for Sister Mary. So it's just a really good organization. They're doing good things. And their saying is, their motto is, none of us are home till all of us are home. And I really like that. It's like a we thing instead of an I thing. And I like anything that kind of builds connections, you know?
Yeah, no, that's really nice. That's beautiful. But you know what song came to mind when you started talking about Sister Mary, right?
A Mother Mary by the Beatles.
I was thinking Sister Christian.
Oh yeah, Sister Christian, oh, the time has come. And you know that you're the only one. I forget the rest of that part, though. I don't know what to say. Okay.
Okay.
Like it's really simple. Got it, ZouZou. It's all good.
Now I feel like hearing that song.
You're welcome.
I love that. So, you know, COVID, it's here. It's a pain in the butt, and quarantining and social distancing has really put a damper on everyone's lives, of course. And you know, that might have slowed you down a little bit, but it hasn't stopped you. What have you done to continue getting your name out there in these difficult times?
Well, it's funny because, you know, when it first happened, I think a number of us thought this too. I don't think I was alone in thinking it's only going to last like 2 weeks or a month, maybe 2 months. But by summer, we'll probably start doing some shows. And then by fall, we'll be back on the road. That's really what I thought. And then by like April, mid-April, because there were so many talks about it. Easter, we're going to do this. By Easter, we'll open this up. So when you see things starting to open, I figured, okay, because we went to like lockdown, right? We were on tour when this happened and we came home, and we had a whole tour scheduled because that's when our album released, March 13th. And that Tuesday before was when it was, the pandemic was announced at the CDC. And we came home from California, and slowly but surely every single one of our dates was, they were postponing, but then they finally just canceled. And so I thought, we decided that once a week we would still get together and do, like record a song that I don't know where this came to me from. I was like, we'll just do a cover song that we may never have done as a band, because maybe it didn't fit us as a band, but we'll just do them. And it was funny. We started doing them, and then people really liked them. So we started releasing them like once a week, because like we did like 3 in the front end. So we had like 3 weeks right there. And then Travis couldn't really meet up because he lives with an older grandparent. So he learned to start splicing our videos together, and then he knew how to mix the audio, and we just did it in GarageBand, and people really liked it. And I started calling it our one and done series. Like, we're not going to really rehearse because we can't, but we're going to do these songs sometimes apart, sometimes together with the members that could meet. And we're going to record them, and we're not going to worry about if they're perfect or not. It's a one and done. It's like, here's the song, it's done. So that way I didn't have like this big expectation. Plus we had this really professional album already out, produced. And so it's like, it's not going to hurt to just do some stuff to stay connected. Because right away it occurred to me, like the very first week, I'm like, we have to stay connected. It wasn't so much as we got to promote the album. I just felt like we had to stay connected to people. So we started doing that. And then we also started doing, we all met, we did Facebook Lives. We did like 2 of them. And people started writing me saying, you don't know how much we needed that. You guys made me laugh. All of you together makes me laugh. And we're kind of corny together and silly. And people really liked it. And it was just a Q&A we would do every week, and,
have technical difficulties, which were also funny. So
we just kept giving people what they asked for, you know what I mean? And we did like live stream. We didn't really start doing live streams till we did one that was supposed to be our release show that was canceled in Philly on March 20th. And it was awful. Like, we didn't know Stage It couldn't handle like full band stuff. So the first set was a mess. And then the second set we did acoustic, and it was still weird sound. But anyway, so we didn't do one again until June. and then people were asking us to do like festival, like record ourselves in a rehearsal room and send it. So we did that. So we were on some festivals, some radio stations put up like 2 or 3 song sets, and and that's how we actually built more of an audience during COVID. We had a new album, we had songs that ended up on the radio for the first time on commercial radio, and they would ask us to do like special acoustic sets on Zoom. And so opportunities just kept coming throughout the summer. And then we partnered with Bowery Electric and did a show with like 10 cameras and professional sound. And that was awesome. And the last one we did was in October, and then we're going to be off till January. We're going to do another one. And it offered us the opportunity to record and release new music. We started releasing the one and dones on lathe cuts, just 25 of them. And then our label had us come in September. We were starting to go in again to record. So we have a single coming out in January. We recorded in our rehearsal room, and the label liked it. The radio stations liked it. So they're playing the Christmas song that we did in our rehearsal room. So we've all gotten to be it's kind of like one foot in front of the other, like something led to something else. But the feedback of our fans was vital to us knowing what to do next. And it wasn't like we were asking them. They were just telling us what they wanted. And then whenever I suggested, hey, maybe we should watch a movie together, they're like, when are we going to watch that movie together? I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't know why I haven't said that. You know what I mean? I don't know how to do like I think Travis was telling me about how to do it. And I was just like, if you're not going to figure it out, like, I don't have that kind of brain. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, but yeah, I feel like, the longer it's gone on, I think it's been a little more difficult we've gotten busier in terms of like we're making videos and we're doing more songwriting and we're rehearsing, and it's it becomes a little less like, okay, there's really nothing new to do. It's just right, you know what I mean? So that's what we're doing.
Definitely. And you mentioned the Christmas single, and that was the cover for the Sonic Santa Claus. What made you do your first ever Christmas song?
Well, here's what's funny about that. Brianna, our drummer, reminded me. She's like, we did do a Christmas song before. I'm like, she's like, when I wasn't in the band yet. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot. But we didn't release it. It was just a song we recorded for this compilation, a Philly compilation. But it is our first ever Christmas song that we recorded as a band to be heard. You know what I mean? To be out there. And so even though it's not officially our first recording, I was like, oh, I forgot about that one. But yeah, Travis again said to me, we should do a Christmas song, or I thought we should do a Christmas song. I forget who came up with the idea, but then it was like August, and I was like, I don't really want to write a Christmas song in August. I'm not in the mood, and it would just be whatever. So by October, I'm like, well, maybe it'd be a good exercise. Like, I'm going to write a song in 5 minutes. Like, that's going to be my job. And so I wrote a Christmas song, and it's almost done. Like, we collaborated once over it. We need to meet one more time, but it's pretty much done. And I like it a lot. It fits us, but it wasn't done in time to be recorded and released. So Santa Claus was a song that was suggested. It was, and we're like, well, let's just run it and let's record it and release it, just to our fans. Like, we'll send it to our email list or to our Patreon people. It'll just be something nice and kind of like a gift. So we recorded it in the rehearsal room, and Travis mixed and mastered it. And then I was like, well, maybe this came out really good. Let me send it to Underground Garage, see if they'd want to play it. And no skin off my nose if they say no, whatever. So I sent it in to them, and they were like, we'll play it, but we'll also release it. So I was like, okay. And then we did this video in our rehearsal room, and they're like, you want us to press partner it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so we did that. And it kind of is the song that we just did to do, with no real attention to detail or production. And it came out all right. So, and so far I've realized, I'm like, man, it was good to do a Christmas song. We should have done this years ago. Like, you know what I mean? People like it. So it's
yeah,
good.
Definitely. I mean, I could always appreciate a good Christmas song. I've been listening to Christmas songs lately too. That's part of my Spotify mix.
Yeah. I think I was just saying this to Brianna today. I was like, I feel like everybody's more in the Christmas spirit this year than last year. And I saw trees on people's cars like the day after Thanksgiving. I'm like,
yeah,
right out there. Like, they want Christmas now. Like,
that's so true. It's like now they're advertising the same night as Halloween. I'm like, can Halloween get a freaking holiday on its own,
yeah,
please?
it went too fast this year, I feel like.
I know. It's, you know what? They keep creeping up, and it's like, you'll even notice in the summertime, they'll start putting Christmas trees out in the stores.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not there yet. Give me a second to get through like the first couple of holidays, like Halloween and Thanksgiving, and then we'll talk.
Yeah. Oh, commercialism.
I know. It's crazy.
To make sure they do all right, I guess.
For sure. So what's next for you and Soraia? And do you have any upcoming releases or virtual shows that we can look out for?
Yeah, I mean, we have the Christmas songs out now that came out the week of Thanksgiving. And then we have an original single with a B-side, the collaboration physical single coming out January 8th. And that's called Tight Lipped. And the B-side is a cover of Aerosmith's Angel that we did with another artist, Jesse Wagner, who's on our label. And then that comes out in January. And then we have a release show, a virtual release show at Bowery Electric on January 15th, Friday the 15th, which tickets go on sale December 18th for that. And then we have shows starting in spring, opening for Joan Jett and opening for Killer Queen and going to Sweden. So hopefully that happens. If not, they'll be moved, I'm sure. They've been moved a few times. So, and if not, we plan still on going in and recording our next single, hoping for a summer release. We already have the song written and rehearsed, so we're ready to go with that. That's it. And just waiting for go time for touring, We're just going to keep rehearsing and learning new material, and working on our writing.
Awesome. So is there anything else you'd like to share with us? Maybe your social media handle? I know your website is Soraia, Soraia.com.
Yes.
And
yeah, Soraia Rocks is pretty much our handle on everything: Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. So yeah, they can find us on all those. Bandcamp is Soraia at Wicked Cool Records. Bandcamp is what we're on. And yeah, that's it.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing your story, because it's not easy talking about certain things, and you went there, and I really appreciate that, and our listeners appreciate that. I love the honesty, and that really goes a long way with your fans. I think that everyone appreciates that. So thank you. I do love having you on the show. It's been awesome. So thank you.
I loved it. Great questions, Melissa, and you were fun to talk to. And I appreciate hearing what you like musically too. We're very compatible there.
Yeah, like you and I, we'd be good friends.
Yes, we would. Yes, we would. We could talk about music. That's what I talk about with all my friends.
I love it. I love it. And I love your merchandise on your site. You got some cool, interesting things on there. Just checking it out.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a friend who makes a lot of the Christmas merch. A friend of mine, Kat Porterfield, has made us Christmas merch, and she's made us voodoo dolls for years. So
yeah, I saw those. They're like creepy cool at the same time.
Yeah, she's pretty genius at coming up with like cool things that she thinks people would like. And Brianna's great with doing the artwork. She designed all the faces and stuff like that. So we have a good team. We have a good team together.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. Well, I wish you and the band the best. I'll be looking forward for everything that's yet to come, and be safe. Have a lovely holiday season, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Melissa. You too. Take care of yourself.
Thanks. Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.